Hi, good afternoon. Welcome everyone. We are about to start. Let me turn my camera on here. Hi everyone. We'll be starting very shortly, but we'll take some minutes to allow people to come in, and hopefully we'll be starting very soon. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for being part of this. And maybe on the comment section there, try to, maybe you should say where you, maybe your name, if your name is not in full here, and or just say which organization you're representing, or which organization you work with. You want to start, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce myself. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Duala Ekoko, and I'm part of the team with Active Newcomer Youth.
Thank you.
Is there something else that you would like I should?
The mediator is there. Thank you, Sophia. Can you hear me, Sophia?
I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect.
All set?
Thank you, Gary. Back to you, Sophia.
Okay, awesome. Hi guys, welcome to the conversation. I appreciate everybody being here. We will get started with the program. So welcome to the Social Planning Council of Ottawa's event for Black Mental Health Week, Alternative Non-Mental Health Intervention. My name is Sophia Jacob, and I'm going to be moderating the discussion. So before we begin, we want to be able to empower the space with a land acknowledgement. So the Social Planning Council of Ottawa does recognize that our office is located on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We acknowledge and respect all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Social Planning Council of Ottawa respectfully acknowledges and appreciates our presence on the Algonquin Anishinaabe ancestral lands. We're grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory with you today, and we will continue to work in solidarity towards improving the lives of our diverse people on this shared land and acknowledge the importance and commitment to decolonization towards working in partnership with Indigenous communities. So mental health illness intervention can take place in a variety of settings and typically involves multidisciplinary teams to provide providers such as counselors, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, nurses, and mental health aides and peer support professionals. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to mental health interventions, and that is the main point of this webinar today. We want to explore some non-medical interventions that could really be working in terms of mental health. I want you to be able to join me to welcome our panelists that are going to be leading this conversation. So please welcome Nazra Hussain. She is a Somalian Canadian public health practitioner who's a settler based in Guelph, Ontario. Nazra is currently the mental health equity lead at the Guelph Neighborhood Support Coalition and previously has worked with the Social Planning Council of Ottawa as the health services researcher on research projects about alternative crisis intervention models and the Photo Voice Project, U-Voice, and with racialized youth in Ottawa. Emmanuel Dula Ekoko is the community social worker working with the Action Newcomer Youth Ottawa, using soccer to combat mental health issues. And Reuben Nashali is a strong community mobilizer and a program manager with Social Planning Council of Ottawa, who is also playing an important role with the soccer initiative. So we'll start by everybody saying a few remarks, and then we'll get right into our conversation. So I'll start with you, Nazra.
Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here. It's been a while since I've seen some of you, so it's nice to see some familiar faces again. It's been a while since I've really revisited this topic of alternative mental health crisis intervention and really challenging the status quo, because the status quo has eliminated so many racialized, ethnocultural, and vulnerable groups for so long, putting us in the margins and criminalizing us, putting us in jails and involuntarily admitting us into emergency departments and psychiatric wards and stuff. So I'm looking forward to discussing with my fellow panelists some grassroots approaches and also deconstructing and dismantling what the current processes and systems are. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what else you wanted me to add, Sophia.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Nazra. And I'll give a minute to Emmanuel. Oh, you're still on mute. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. I'm actually honored to be talking about this topic with all of you. And personally, I've been into sports and coaching, youth mentoring for over 20 years of my life, close to 20 years of my life. I've been coaching soccer teams and mentoring youth in alternative ways. And coming from a Black community in Africa, Cameroon, I come from Cameroon, and mental health is not really a thing, and people don't acknowledge it. So yeah, it's the same thing with the Black community. They don't acknowledge there's mental health, so they don't seek counseling. But there are alternative things which help them navigate this. And I realized that Black communities love soccer, they love football and other things. And that's always been a way which works for the community. You go with what works for the people. And I look forward to discussing this topic more with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And Reuben?
Thanks so much, Sophia. So my name is Reuben Nashali, and I work with the Social Planning Council for Ottawa, of course, taking part with Emmanuel and the rest in the soccer project. And the reason as why I gave fully attention to this subject, it's the fact that, just like what Emmanuel said, myself, I'm an immigrant here in Ottawa, and I came to Canada 2017 February. So I'm pretty much new here, and coming from my own culture, like mental health is not a table conversation within our families. And I realized, just like what my colleague Emmanuel have said, there is a need to pressure or to put more effort on the discussions of mental health. And just a background there, even before COVID-19, mental health was a serious issue, and it still had very social, economic effects, particularly to racialized communities. And being one of the socialized or Black communities in Ottawa, I take this subject very seriously. And I hope my involvement, of course, in this subject, as well as everyone that is here, of course, this subject is a matter of concern to all of us. Then we will spearhead some grassroots solutions. We will promote and encourage community leaderships that will help improve the situation in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Reuben. So we'll get right into the conversation. So this first question is open to our panelists for every one of you to answer. One thing that is undeniably important, mental health intervention should be tailored to the individual and or a particular community. How correct is this statement? So I'll start back with Nazra.
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Sure. One thing that is undeniably important, mental health intervention should be tailored to the individual and or a particular community. How correct is this statement?
Absolutely. I think Emmanuel said it like during his introduction of like, you have to make sure that whatever is created or formulated for the community really addresses their needs and the gaps that exist. I have a report that I did as part of my role on the Social Planning Council of Ottawa, and I can put it in the chat. But one of the best practices for alternative non-medical mental health intervention is to have, especially for racialized and ethnocultural communities, to have an anti-racist and culturally responsive praxis embedded in whatever program or service is as administered. So this can look like the need to have interpreters, the need to have a mental health professional, or like Reuben has created a soccer program dedicated for newcomers. So a very culturally specific group where people can feel a sense of belonging, can feel like it's a safe space to connect with their peers, connect with others. So I definitely think that having an individualized and culturally specific centered programs and initiatives is really the way to go. I had alluded to how like the status quo has really been made for the dominant culture, white, cis, those that have, you know, share a bit of the characteristics of like the colonizers of this country. So that really is not the way and hasn't been working for a long time and has socially excluded a lot of groups. So yeah, restructuring that system for sure is what I think is the best.
You're muted, Sophia.
Oh, thank you, Nazra. I'll get Emmanuel to answer.
Okay, can you just rephrase it a little bit again, the question?
Okay, so one thing that is undeniably important, mental health intervention should be tailored to individuals and or a particular community. How correct is this statement?
It's actually very important that we approach it by community, because every community has a different way of approaching it, like Nasser said. And the way it's approached is geared towards the needs of different communities. So for example, the way the Somalian community might approach the mental health discussions will be different from how the Iraqi communities chooses to address it amongst their community. And same thing goes with other cultural groups which are settled all over the city. But personally, I think if we can have like this topic of mental health talked about much more in a lighter manner amongst these different groups, that would help reduce the stigma which is around the aspect of mental health. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Reuben?
Thanks so much, Sophia. I think Emmanuel and Nasra have really point out to the most important aspect of this question. And what I can add on top, is the fact that every community defines mental health differently. Then it calls for specific and different approaches to mental health interventions in communities. And just like, I don't want to repeat what Emmanuel have said, but just like what I said, like immigrants from Africa, from Middle East and other parts of the continent interpret mental health very differently. And therefore, we cannot just use a simplified or unified approach toward this problem or toward the crisis. It's because, again, there are other interpretations depending on the community. And maybe to finish up, I would like to point out to one of the research that Nasra did last year. And the participatory research was on mental health barriers to newcomer and racialized youth in the community here in Ottawa. Social stigma and discrimination were among the top barriers identified to be the main barriers preventing youth from accessing mental health. So of course, this gives an alarm that like the entire system is not working. The fact that some youth view social stigma, social issues, as well as discrimination to be a barrier of them fully assessing mental health, then there's a need for an alternative. When someone is not feeling safe or cultural attractive to mental health services, then they're less likely to approach those services and even benefiting from them.
Thank you, Reuben. This next question is for you, Nasra. In regards to mental health crisis intervention, how important is alternative mental health crisis intervention, particularly in racialized and Black communities?
For sure. And yeah, I could speak to the report and some of the findings that I found in reimagining crisis intervention. And one of the top two barriers with mental health response and crisis intervention, the first being a police response. Oftentimes people don't know who to call when a loved one or someone that they see on the street is experiencing a mental health crisis or is clearly in distress. So their automatic response is often to call 911, right? And oftentimes if the person is showing behavioral symptoms or is in distress, they're not going to be acting as their so-called normal self. So the police can often perceive that person as a threat, especially if they are racialized. Black, Indigenous, like the statistics are there, Black and Indigenous people are the top demographic that oftentimes is criminalized for their mental health struggles. And so with the absence of community-based and alternative methods, police services serve as that central component to mental health crisis response. And this raises concerns of unnecessary arrests, use of force resulting in injury or death, and also involuntary escorts to the emergency department. And that's without their choice of being there. They're just put in there, and sometimes their family, their friends, they don't know where their loved one is. So having like their family, having peers involved in the process is also really important. If you look at a few situations that have happened in the last 2 years with Ijaz Chowdhury and Regis Korchinski-Paquette, their family members often criticize police officers in the media and to this day for how their loved one was treated and how it resulted in a lethal response. So this is a matter of life and death, and the police response is something that I think that most people are very much normalized to calling 911, but having educated and trained dispatchers that can use a screening triage of some kind and assess whether the response should be a police response or a community-led or social service response, you know, like that's something that should be definitely, I guess, practiced or considered for what the current system is right now.
Thank you so much, Nazra. I have this next question for Emmanuel. With regards to social-based activities, how important is soccer to mental health well-being, particularly in Black and racialized young individuals?
Okay, that's a very good question. I find it's very important because, like, I want to first of all acknowledge Reuben for what he said about the point I made, because there is this stigma about mental health. Black youths generally don't tend to go for counseling. They don't tend to go to seek counseling or to seek a therapist for how they feel. And that's why most times you see it results to calling a cops because it's already got into a stage where they cannot manage. Usually there are already signs which come around with it. But because it's laughed upon, it's frowned upon to actually say you're feeling. I tried it before when I was younger in my own family. I told my brother when I came here, I told him like, I'm not feeling okay. And he started laughing. And that made me realize how much we don't take it seriously in our community. And through these soccer programs I've been running, I tend to realize, like, I ran a soccer league in 2019 and in 2021. And I realized that youth opened up more when they had this relaxed environment. They brought, like, they discussed with us what they were going through. They opened up more. They had this friendly, welcoming approach to it. And they appreciated that. And we saw numbers. We tried other approaches. We brought mental health counselors. No one came for those meetings. You have maybe 2 or 3 people show up. We try other approaches, like maybe organizing seminars and workshops. The youth don't show up. Like the youth here in the community don't show up. But when you organize the soccer program or like a lively event, then you have that something which is social. Youth vibe with that and they can relate with it. And then we integrate that. So what we're able to do in 2019 is bring in some mentors who were able to, counselors who were able to mentor some of the teams and get to interact with the youth and know them more through just the soccer program. That way they got to really have a feeling of they know this person, not just a friend. And through sports, it helps brings down those barriers those boundaries which people put up, and those walls which people come here and life hits different, and people build walls which you don't just put them down. People don't just let those walls down because it's their God. And it will only take a very welcoming, friendly environment where they feel accepted, where they feel like it's a zone for them to actually start expressing or opening up how they actually feel. So that was something which we realized, and then that makes it now a very big part on how we can explore this gap, because within the city there is no free soccer tournaments for immigrants. So if they are supposed to play, you have to pay, and it's very expensive. It's over like $300 or so for like a month or so for soccer. So most of these kids, you're paying school, most of them don't have jobs. Many of them can't even speak the language sometimes. Like they struggle with just barely speaking it right. So, and they're still in school. So having that environment where they can just come and be themselves and express what they love. Immigrants love soccer. If you organize a soccer game, everyone turns up for it. So that makes it easier and gives us something which we can work with in order to deliver better services to the community. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question.
Thank you. No, that's okay. And Reuben, do you want to add on to that?
Well, I think Emmanuel said very good, touch on very good points there. Maybe the only thing that I can pretty much add is like sport-based activities, just like clinical interventions to mental health. And I think having that emphasis, and just like what Emmanuel said, mental health alone already has stigma toward, especially on Black community. And how best, particularly to youth, how best can you solve this issue if not going to where they want? And soccer being any social activity like soccer or basketball, these are very prominent and famous social activities within our community. And trying to infuse mental health within that activity then will definitely serve as the best intervention strategy.
Thank you, Reuben. So again, to all of you, I have another question. What do you think is the future of non-medical mental health intervention? Has it been given enough attention? If not, what do you think should be done? Nazra, we can start back with you.
That's a good question.
I think the future of these medical mental health interventions is not looking so great when we consider even the cost. Like one of the top barriers for people accessing mental health supports and services, like the traditional means, is the cost of services that are often not covered by private insurance plans. And you have to, in order to access a suitable psychiatrist that resembles you, like that's culturally similar to you and stuff, that's hard to navigate. And it's just so high cost, and it affects someone's access to their mental health needs and service delivery on that realm. So I love how this conversation is centering grassroots approaches. In the Photo Voice project that I did, and Reuben was also involved in it, the group of racialized youth that I interacted with, we had so many deep conversations about like what would allow you to access mental health supports. And they didn't name like, oh, I want access to therapy, I want access to a counselor, like, those often referred mental health resources. They recommended low to no cost programs such as physical activity, which is very much a cost-effective way to improve mental health, especially in youth and newcomers. I think soccer is really great because it's such a universal sport. I was watching soccer with my family the other day. I'm just like, wow, they're representing like all the countries of the world, basically. And it's just something that people gravitate to and relate to. And there's this dose response relationship with the more activity, physical activity that people do, their mood just improves significantly. There's so many benefits to it with working memory, sleep, all of that. And right now, my current job, we have an initiative. I work at the Guelph Neighborhood Support Coalition that overlooks 15 neighborhood groups across the city. And there's an initiative that I brought forth, and it's called the Creative Collective, and it's creating creative spaces and safe, supportive spaces for people to congregate and do creative arts together, digital storytelling and all of that. And also having a critical reflection component, because art is a way for people that I found out in the photo voice activity that I did, where youth came with their photographs and then had like a reflection about their photos too. It just enabled them to share and to reflect on community assets. And so that's a way of improving mental health and creating these safe spaces. So really, I think that the future of these grassroots non-medical mental health interventions is very positive. And we're going to see that we're going to have a progression towards that future.
Thank you, Nazra. Reuben, I'll get you to answer that question next.
Okay, perfect. Oh yeah, thank you so much, Sophia. I think Emmanuel and Sophia again, and Nasra have nailed the point here. But maybe what I can also add to the discussion is, well, the only issue is what I've seen, like with the involvement in the community and all these initiatives. Any idea that goes against the mainstream obviously is not welcomed. And that proved to be unfortunately, a big challenge toward social-based activities. Because again, according to the Canadian mainstream mental health intervention, counseling is the only and effective way of mental health intervention. Any other thing, it's not effective, or it's not given enough attention. But if we start bringing this discussion to the main, like to the tables and the main stakeholders, then it's very important to acknowledge culture and race plays a very important issue in mental health access. There is a very huge stigma mental health crisis, mental health awareness in the community, particularly in the Black community. And if you're using the same method for over years and there's no improvement, then that's a straight a sign that the entire thing you're using is not effective, particularly that community. And I think that alone should give us a sense on the need to promote other non-medical intervention. And one of which, again, I would give it a big thank. So these are peer supports. They're peer supports, like they're not medical interventions. Like peer supports are also very effective way of promoting mental health wellness. And for this year going forward, what we're trying to do is trying to incorporate peer support and soccer, so that the peer support workers or volunteers will be providing that alternative support and assistance at the field. And by combining the two non-medical interventions, we believe they will definitely help us in a long run.
Fantastic. And Emmanuel, I'll get you to give a response too.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would say for alternative non-mental health programs like what we do, they have certain limitations within the city, like what Reuben said. they have limitations in funding. They have limitation in lots of many other areas which like is not welcome, because there was a traditional way it was done before, like what Reuben said, which was mainly workshops. They were usually called workshops or stuff like that. And those workshop systems are not very much welcome amongst the youth now, particularly amongst the Black youth. It's a very big limitation to youth because they are not very computer based, first of all, and they have to sit on Zoom since COVID started. Everything has been transferred to Zoom. So sometimes even when I used to work with OCISO and we ran programs for young men leading change, we faced these same barriers of like workshop. The youths tell us, we're tired of it. Improvise, come up with new strategies that can better engage us, that can make us feel like you want us to come, like it's meant for us. You can do things on your own understanding and think that that's what we want. That was what youths told me, a good number of them. If you're doing things the way you think it should be done, then you won't see us come. Your numbers will be low. But if you do the things we like, we're gonna come. And then how can we incorporate that thing with making it educative, making it productive in such a way that we can incorporate like counseling to it and other activities that engages them heavily. But in the youth part, there's been limitations in finances. There's been limitation in programs that offer, organizations that offer this alternative interventions in the community. And this has created lots of limitation to program delivery in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So Reuben, I'll ask you this question. In regards to resource development, what do you think are the most sustainable ways to spearhead grassroots leadership in this effort and sustainable development interventions?
Well, thank you so much, Sophia. Of course, there are a number of organizations that are promoting grassroots leadership in this field, and of course, like the Social Planning Council of Ottawa, the Black Hub, of course, of Ottawa too. They're doing amazing work, but I think there's still a long way to go, particularly in promoting grassroots leadership in mental health interventions. And approaches, I think it's about time that approaches have to change. Different communities have different needs, and there's a need to adapt the scripts to different communities. It's very unfortunate to use the same method that has been used in different communities and apply the same to either Black or other Black and racialized communities. I think different communities interpret mental health very differently, and there's a need to adapt the intervention strategies. Regarding to sustainability, particularly let's say to funding, I think just look like what Emmanuel said here. Like there's a big that financial limitations to alternative mental health interventions. I have worked with groups that are doing peer support, for example, they're doing amazing in the community. But if they tell you the budget they're operating on, you'll be shocked. They are doing a lot of work under very limited budget, and only if these other groups or these other initiatives in the community are given full attention, then you're more likely to see the changes. It's very unfortunate that it's 2021 and we're still seeing spiking rates of mental health crisis, particularly in Black community. And that alone should be an alarm that perhaps it's time to start doing things different.
Thank you, Reuben. So we'll pause there with our questions for the panelists, and I'll just read some of the comments in the chat. Some lighthearted activities may help open dialogue on personal mental health experiences and reduce stigma. Please share the link to the soccer program. 613819 produced a report detailing an alternative non-mental police mental health crisis response system, and the link is there. What would you say Black youth facing mental health challenges should say to their family when they need support? What language do people with mental health challenges use to effectively ask family and friends for support without being laughed at? I think I'll go for Nazra to see first. Nazra?
Sure. There's really no easy answer for this question. And I guess I could shed light on some of my personal experiences navigating this issue with someone who has mental health issues. I recall, like, in high school, like when I had the onset of symptoms for social anxiety disorder, it was very difficult to have an open conversation with my parents. My parents are first generation Somali immigrants. They don't really understand, similar to Emmanuel and Reuben, coming from countries where mental health isn't really discussed, it isn't normalized. And if someone does have mental health struggles, the family might, like the ethnocultural community, might perceive you as so-called crazy, or like having like negative perceptions. So it took some time. I think time is an asset in terms of starting the conversation and then continuing the conversation with your family is really important, and also supplying them with resources to educate themselves, because even they might be struggling with trauma and some other precursors for mental health illness and disorders. So really having an open-ended conversation with your parents, with your family, your ethnocultural community. One of the suggestions from the Photo Voice project was for youth to do workshops with the older generation within their ethnocultural communities on mental health awareness and education, to dismantle some of those stigmas associated with mental health. So really, I think it's education, awareness, and it's something that will for sure take time.
Thank you for your response, Nazra. There's another, is the soccer program co-ed? Do men and women play on the same or different teams? What is the ratio of young men and young women in the program? I'll ask Reuben for that.
Well, for a start, we started last year, and one of the challenge we found we got when we are recruiting participants, because like for the first time we didn't have enough resources. Then we thought of if you have to bring both men and women, then what resources do you have in terms of financial capacity? Then the main approach that we saw, for a start, we started with men, so that we see how it goes, so that we can also add female in it. And for this year, we are hoping to really include women in our tournament, either having their own section for female or having them merged with playing with men.
Thank you, Reuben. Another comment, what is interesting is that there is research published by white academics that speak to the efficacy of support activities for managing mental health. For example, mindfulness and meditation is proven to significantly reduce the risk of relapse into depressive episodes. The instance on the white supremacist system that non-Western, Angical, oh my God, I can't say this word, sorry. Models of support aren't valid is pure racism. So I'm terrible with that word, okay? But you know what? I'll ask Nazra to give a response to that because I think Nazra has a response.
Just snaps to that because
Yeah.
that is a difficult word, first
Yeah,
of all.
yeah,
But yeah, I
thank you.
totally,
Yeah.
I think Gina has a good point that, and when I mentioned like the status quo, I mean like that white supremacist system that's non-Western, takes into account the perspectives and the voices of ethnocultural and racialized groups. That is racism for sure, because it's eliminating many groups of people from the administration of like care. And we're talking about non-medical models, but when we even think about a lot of cultural communities, like the indigenous community, they really resonate with, you know, sharing circles, smudging, and very traditional means for practicing mental health and feeling a sense of belonging. I know there's also in many Indian communities Ayurveda, and that's a connection to the mind and the body, and that's their way of, you know, finding meditation and groundfulness. So I definitely think that the system right now, it is perpetuating racism with the options that are available. So it's really amazing that we are having this conversation of like what other alternatives exist, because there's endless. You just have to make sure that you incorporate and that it's racialized ethnocultural communities leading this conversation and pitching these ideas.
Thank you, Nazra. I think Sharon, you had your hand up. You have a question?
Not both a question, and also I'd like to reply, if that's okay, to the comment and question that Gina shared. What would you say to Black youth facing mental health challenges, you know, and to their family? I started having depression at the age of 15. And because it's not something like physical that they can see, right? Our families can't see a cut on, you know, they'll go get a Band-Aid. You know, if our blood sugars are high or low, you know, you get something to eat. But with mental illness, they don't see that. And it's about, I think for me, what would have helped is if I could have spoken specifically about what the symptoms are. You know, I can't focus right now. I'm really tired and I'm not able to get out of bed because I'm getting anxious, my body's shaking. It's about being specific. And if I could have verbalized that at the time, it would have made a huge difference. I remember when I told my mother that I have depression, and she said, well, what do you have to be depressed about? You know, you have a good job and, you know, you have a good husband and so forth. So then with the youth, you know, it's like, oh, you're in a good country and, you know, your mother paying for your food and you ain't got nothing to worry about. Well, what the hell is your problem? Well, well, guess what? You know, I'm shaking because I have so much, my schoolwork or whatever are my friends at, well, not friends at school, the white people at school are making fun of me. I don't feel like I fit in. So how do you verbalize that? I'm thinking that I was in a choir, right, at the time at my church. Well, if we can, and I love the soccer idea, and this came to mind, is to go to the choir directors, you know, at the churches and maybe have a leaflet that says, okay, these are the symptoms when they haven't practiced. The kids are having practice, right? The choir practice. Maybe you can ask the choir directors, can I come for just half an hour, you know, and talk about what the symptoms are of depression. And I think it's naming the symptoms that's gonna make the difference. And to tell, what was the other question? What language do people with mental health challenges use to effectively ask for help? Well, the effective language would be to specify what the symptoms are. That's what I think, which would have made a difference for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Reuben, you have your hand up?
I really wanted to echo what Sophia said, Sharon just said.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And the reason as to why we try very hard, like with the social based activity we're creating, we try as much like to get I don't want to say to get close, but we are trying to create a personal relationship with as many youth as possible, so they can see like there's someone I can talk to. You understand what I'm saying? Like so that like mental health discussions may not be discussions at their house, but we're trying to make them normal within our crowd, so that these kids can really see, oh yeah, there's someone who is going through what I can daily experience. There's someone here that shared the same experiences with me, and there's someone here that I can even discuss this point. When the pandemic started, 1 year down the pandemic, I told my mother I wanted to get a dog because of my mental health. I've never seen my mother laughing that hard. Because to her, like mental health, what do you mean mental health? Because you're going crazy. So like these discussions, yes, they're not as table discussions within our house, but the people we are working with, the youth we're working with, the youth we're meeting every day, we are trying to create an environment where they will feel freely to discuss this point. They feel freely to even hear from other youth and even start to open up on the things they're going through every day.
Okay, Reuben, thank you so much for adding to that. I'm back in the comments. Ari, lack of funding. The hub is pushing to take money from the police budget, which is currently almost $400 million, including $495,000 for dry cleaning in 2022. The city's entire budget for its anti-racism strategy is $100K. There is a great need for more involvement, pushing back against oppressive legislation impacting our mental health. It requires delegation, meetings, research. Social activities for sure will improve our unity and focus, but how do we balance, the work so it's not primarily Black women on the front lines publicly and actively fighting oppressive Ottawa systems? We need cis Black men and of course cis white men to put themselves forward, much more so Black non-dudes and femmes have less burnout. Nasra, I will definitely get you to answer on that one.
If you don't mind, I would actually love cis Black males' perspective on this question.
Okay, so Emmanuel, I'm gonna call you forward, and Reuben.
Oh yeah, she said that's a very good point. SCB, I believe is Mariam. That's a very good point. The only issue here is like I believe the Black Mental Health Coalition, like is like the leading organization in Ottawa that is spearheading the Black mental health within the city. The fact that, like, to be honest, there are many like women in the effort than even us men, which again is a very disappointment. I think I will put it back to our own cultures. Like my culture, men are always taught to be tough and to be resilient. Like you're a man when you're not complaining of what you're going through. And I think that alone plays a very big role, so that many men go through a lot of depression, a lot of mental health struggles, but that cultural thing that, yeah, Black men, you're supposed to be strong, and you're supposed to be more resilient than the women. If you cry, stop acting like a woman. Then that alone prevents us even to be on the front line of this important cause like this, like a mental health intervention. And the other thing too, like the entire system, the entire culture, we are always expected to be tough, and that makes us to feel like well, we don't have to be the first one complaining, and for sure it's having really big impact.
Thank you. Emmanuel, do you have anything to add? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, can you just say it again, like quickly?
Folks are wondering, how can Black men and white men who are, cis Black men and cis white men can come to the front lines to be able to support these initiatives. It's mostly Black women at the front lines doing all the heavy lifting. So folks want to know, like, how can you guys be part of it and be part of the conversation and, do some of the heavy lifting that we a lot of the times do.
Yeah, I think that's a major challenge I've seen actually amongst Black men. Like what Reuben said, I'll just throw some light on that. There's a very huge stigma around that topic in the community. And Black men, as a kid, have been expected to be a Superman, figure everything out. And generally, people just think we have everything figured out. But that's not the case. Like, guys generally are not as smart as women. So societal issues too, like other movements which have come up, have pushed the male gender, the Black male gender, further backwards. That they do not feel like their voices are heard or their voices matter that much anymore in society. And that's a very big challenge to men. Like, there are so many programs supporting women in the city, but you barely see any program for men that support men in the city. And that was a major challenge as well, which we saw during the Young Men Leading Change movement. We saw that even men's mental health, there was no men's mental health program running. And how do we say we are helping young men face these challenges when they are being pushed all the time by the rest of society with all these societal pressures and expectations that only puts them in a box, and they're expected to fit in a box. And if you don't fit in that box, then you're gay, or you're viewed as, you're called names for being unable. So I feel like society in general has done a lot to limit how much young guys, masculinity in general. And I feel like if we can generate more programs towards males' mental health as well, it's going to help create a very supportive environment, a more stable society where males as well are able to speak up and fight for these things that are challenging to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And I will definitely say that same stigma kind of is with Black women too. A lot of society does think that Black women, the strong Black woman. Now, not to say that, I have I have my own issues, right? Of course, they're there. I don't always have to be showing you this strong side and for you to understand that I have my own traumas. Like, we have our traumas, we have our troubles, and we have our own issues. So you have to understand that strong Black woman stigma that's placed on our backs isn't always the case. It really isn't always the case. You really have to understand that we are human beings and that we need assistance, support, and all the rest. Now, I wouldn't say don't take my kindness for weakness, because some folks do that, and you just can't do that, right? For like myself, I'll speak about myself. I'm a kind person, but I'm also very assertive, right? I know where I'm going to stand, and I'm going to stand on that one pillar of thing. If you try to, and I have created boundaries, and that is one thing I have to say to folks that, that will help you along your journey. If you don't create boundaries, that is when people will try and cross the line. When people try and cross the line and you have an issue saying something, it'll cause you harm. Create your boundaries. That's one thing I can say from myself to give to somebody else. Create your boundaries and don't let anybody cross that line. That is something that's vitally important. Once they cross that line, you have to make them aware that they're crossing that line. And for you to do that is a no-no. You've crossed a boundary. You've crossed a vital boundary, and I can't let you go any further. You do that and you're coming into, like, my territory. I will definitely put up the defensive walls and deflect back. So those are some of the things that I'll have to say from me, myself. That's how I operate. That's how I operate. So I think we have more comments down here. Interesting point, Reuben. So true. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing your experience. Very real. As a full-time Black activist, I can confirm that my fellow Black activists are overwhelmingly sisters in the Ottawa area, Halifax, and GTA. We need to find out why this is so we can address it. Looks like more discourse on gender roles and perceptions are needed. Thank you for your honesty, great panel, and thank you, Nazra, for being unapologetic about decolonization and unlearning white supremacy. Cheers to all. I've learned a lot. Thanks, everyone. So I think we're coming to the end of our conversation. I think I'm going to give my panelists one last comment before we go, and I will start with Emmanuel.
Okay, so one last comment. Oh, maybe Reuben should go first.
Well, I'll just say thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And yeah, this has been a learning moment for all of us. Looking forward to work with all of you if should time and of course resources allow us. Of course, please, if you can reach out to us or to me, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, hoping for the best to everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. And it looks like here there's ACB peer support groups happening Wednesdays from 1 to 3, non-gender exclusive. So encourage men to come and join. You can also reach out to Reuben because he does have the information. Emmanuel.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophia. Thank you, Nazri. Thank you, everyone, for your great points, Reuben and Sharon, and everyone who contributed, everyone who participated. It's been great sharing ideas, and I hope that we can do this more over time. We can keep having much more productive. I feel like this was very educative for myself too, and we can keep having discussions like this to better help serve our community. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Nazra?
Yeah, I just want to share the thank you and the appreciation for inviting me today and coming back into the SBCO space. I might be coming back to Ottawa. I have my partner lives there. So, you know, hopefully I can be a part of the ACB conversation and continuing this conversation. And I agree, Sophia, when I first started the chapter for Black Lives Matter in Guelph, there was a lot of involvement from both the brothers and sisters to be a part of it. And a year and a half in, now it's all sisters that are a part of the chapter and that are leading this anti-oppressive work and putting together mutual aid initiatives with a limited budget. So I also share the rhetoric in the comment section of it's usually Black women that are leading, that are activists, that are really trying to dismantle these existing oppressive systems. So I hope that it is a unified effort with cis Black and white men, and that it's not only Black women, trans, LGBT, Black individuals that are leading this work and advocating for better resources for our community. Thank you.
We would be so happy to have you back in Ottawa, Nazra. And of course, you'll be part of the ACB community conversations. Always, always, always. So we want to thank Social Planning Council of Ottawa for hosting this conversation, and the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition for the entire week of events of Black Mental Health Week. So in less than an hour, it is the closing ceremony for Black Mental Health Week with the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition. So if you're looking for the events, you guys must have the links because you've signed up. If not, go to Eventbrite and look for the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition and be able to sign up to catch the last event for the week. We really want to thank you, and we look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thanks for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Sophia.